I'm Wendy Wilson. I'd like to wish you Happy New Year and to welcome you to another edition of Realizing Potential. I'd like to extend a thanks to all of our supporters throughout the years, your commitment, and not only your support to this particular program, but also to Albany State University. So I want to thank you in 2022. I'm excited about today's guest. She is a newest addition to Albany State University, and she is responsible for one of our newest minors, and I'm just elated and looking forward to collaborating with her. She is none other than Dr. Elizabeth Kuipers. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm very glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it is my pleasure. It is my pleasure. Tell our viewers, because you're new to this area, new to Albany State University, a little bit about yourself, your background as it relates to your academic experiences, and then also your career and what led to now your current role here at Albany State.
Thank you. I started my college career at Wesleyan College in Macon, Georgia. It is a small women's college that I found that I was not a leader before I went there. And when I left, I knew that I had leadership potential. So I followed that muse and went to Auburn University to get my master's degree and my PhD in English. That led me to Georgia Southwestern State University, where I taught for the next 19 years in the English department. What I would consider a crisis in education happened in my hometown, and I took a break to form a K-12 charter school, and I was the principal of that charter school for 2 years and realized that really I needed to get back into the classroom in higher ed. So I applied to come to Albany State, where I knew that my new information about K-12 education and the limitations and the advantages of our region could be explored a little bit more fully. So this is my third year here, and I've had a wonderful time here. My interest in English and literature about women led me to an interest in women's studies back in the day. That's what we called it. Mm-hmm. That has since expanded to women, gender, and sexuality studies. So when I came to ASU, I was in a freshman 1101 English class, and we were doing a unit on gender, and my students were just so enthralled in what we were talking about. And they said, Dr. Kuipers, is there any way we can continue studying this? And this was year one when I was here. And so I said, I don't know, let me check it out. Come to find out, Albany State did not have a program in women, gender, and sexuality studies. So I began the pathway to create that minor out of student interest expressed in the classroom.
Well, Dr. Kuipers, thank you for correcting me, first of all. I had you new to Albany State, and you actually have some history here. You've been here for 3 years. So that I'm going to assume you have been tucked away, just really grinding away with our students and developing them and just being a staunch student advocate. And so that's probably why we just have not crossed paths, but it is certainly my pleasure now. And excited. When you were talking about your work in the K through 12 spectrum, I was thinking, okay, well, where is the cloning machine? Because of course, we still need you in that space, particularly in light of this new 3-year where we'll be glad when it's over, and it seems to keep morphing. I hate to even call its name, but it has caused us to adjust. And I'm always pained when I catch the morning news, that little brief piece, because I can't handle much of the news these days. But I'm always concerned, just as an educator, when I hear the challenges that particularly our K through 12 teachers are facing, and the shortages and the impact that it has on not only the educational process and the service and the product that the students are receiving, but the teachers themselves, how that is affecting them emotionally, because I do believe that teaching is very much a calling. So your work is still needed, and I know you're still in that space, but now we've expanded that. So let me just applaud you for doing that and your commitment, your lifelong commitment to that. But you said our focus, of course, today is going to be on this new minor. You had students that were saying, hey, this is of interest to me. how can we grow and develop this and take greater advantage of a very important and critical study that I believe permeates each facet of society. And so I'd be surprised if you disagree with me on that, but share with our viewers, what will that experience look like?
This is a very interdisciplinary minor by design. Honestly, the first thing I did was go through the course catalog to see what was already on the books, to pull those courses in so that students could understand women and gender and sexuality issues through the sociology lens and through the history lens and certainly through the arts lens. Because I'm in the English department, the minor is housed in this department. So we had the opportunity to create some additional classes in art, women in art and women in music, which we were wonderfully excited about doing. So there are a core center of classes that students would take. Their first one is an introduction to women, gender, and sexuality studies. And that attempts to marry lived experience with theory and then take that knowledge or that shift of perspective and bring in activism. Service learning is very important to me, and it's very important in engaging our students. It's a high impact practice, and our students really love it. So in that first course, about half of the class is a service learning project that the students design to attack some issue that they see in the community. That could be at ASU's campus, that could be Albany-wide. So we hope to bring in community participants and help reach out to the community and bring our expertise and student impact to the community as well. So then they take a couple of other classes in the arts, but then all of the rest of the classes are in sociology or history or psychology. There are even some appropriate criminal justice classes that were already on the books. So I'm really excited about the interdisciplinary nature of this that allows students to look at all kinds of issues through the lens of gender, sexuality, and women's issues.
Let me tell you why I'm immediately impressed. Well, I'm impressed on for so many different reasons, but you sharing at length what it's comprised of. What I absolutely love is the service learning component at the onset. To me, as a prospective student, that's going to get me, that's an immediate engagement. And then that then places a level of responsibility in terms outside of the theories and the concepts, but to be an advocate or an activist, you use that word, in the entire process. What are some of the projects that the students have identified themselves, whether it be locally or across the state, that they're engaging in?
Well, I can tell you from a past experience, this semester is the first semester that we've offered that introductory class. So we're not quite there yet. When I was teaching a very similar class at GSW, which is just in Americas, some of our students recognized that there were no places in a 3-county area where battered women could find shelter. And they found out that Albany, indeed, was the closest place that battered women could have a place to go. And so they did a program on campus to raise awareness about that. But then they also enticed a music professor who had a black belt in karate to give a Saturday self-defense workshop. And the cost of coming to the self-defense workshop was a stuffed animal, because the sheriff's department in our community keeps stuffed animals in the back of their cars so that when they have to remove a child from a home in a crisis situation, they can give that child a stuffed animal to help ease that transition in a very small way. So it was a project for them that reached out to the community in a number of ways and was really inspiring and successful for them.
Wow. Yeah, it's the little things that in fact do matter. I was, placing myself in my mind in the position of a child that, being removed in a home, and I'm thinking how traumatic that experience is, and to have something comforting. And we may minimize, oh, what is a stuffed animal, but it may mean a lot in that moment. So that's very powerful within itself. It's also unfortunate when you start just tapping away at a lot of these experiences, or start conducting research or study, that you then learn the voids and the deficits that exist throughout this community, and that directly impact, in this particular case, women, and the ripple effect that it has.
Absolutely. Women and children, and certainly the foster care system and the criminal justice system. It just, as you say, is a ripple effect in so many different ways. And they're not, those big systemic problems are not things that we can solve quickly or easily, but rather than be depressed and frustrated with the information that students learn in this program, I want them to feel empowered to go do something to make the situation better. We want to learn the theory, we want to learn about the problems, but we really want to go make an impact.
Yeah. Well, again, I think that it's the way that's been designed and structured, it should be an automatic win in that regard, because again, that service learning component, most programs, and you and I are in the world of we're in the academy, and so we know oftentimes service learning projects are anchored at the end of the program of study. And then to shift that again, I got excited. I would love that. You mean I can start getting my feet wet and then start attempting to make a difference, and then again learning the concepts and theories as we go along.
Absolutely. Feminists say the personal is political. And so we have to make those personal issues political issues so that we can ultimately make a big change.
Sure. It's a lot of work that awaits us. I know we're up for it. You just have to, it could cause a lot of anxiety, because when you start hearing about these pervasive issues, and how they may be, depending upon the locale, how pronounced they may be, it is absolutely staggering. And then you process the level of work that still awaits, and you just have to have that, take a moment and say, but also look at how far we've come in that.
Oh, absolutely. And that is an important perspective, I think, for our students right now, particularly given all of the other challenging, trying things that we have to face in our nation right now. We do want to acknowledge, yes, we have made progress. We absolutely have, but we're not done. And I regularly tell my students, much of my fight is over. Now I'm arming you to go out and continue the fight. So that's sort of my goal.
Good deal. Well, you're doing a great job. So thank you for your collective work, because I know you, as you just said, you're still involved in the educational process. And then this is just something added on to that, but certainly needed. So thank you. And I must say that I'm looking forward to collaborating with you on various initiatives and supporting in any way that I can. The president is very committed to having an expansive approach of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion here. And so when Dr. Thomas shared what you were doing, I'm like, oh, we've got to get her on the show. And how can we begin to partner? One of the things that we stress here at Albany State University is that the work is a collective. It is not isolated or siloed. And so we all have a responsibility as it relates to, yours is just a tentacle of that whole process, to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Full representation, dealing with marginalized communities and how we can empower them. It goes across the board. And so it's not just isolated to one particular area.
Absolutely.
And so again, I look forward to partnering with you in the future. I'm curious, we've already established a connection in terms of, I made a comment about reading and you're like, absolutely, I want to talk about books. Let's do that. So I can imagine your library at home is just marvelous and equipped with all of the necessary essentials from various genres, including women's studies, I'm sure is quite a few shelves. But share with the viewers a book that has most impacted your life outside of your preferred religious text.
I will say that no matter how many times I come up with a top 5 novels list, Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God is always
Yes.
1 or 2.
Yes.
Always, always.
Yes.
The book is, it's amazing from an academic feminist perspective because it disappeared. And Alice Walker in the 70s is the person who found it. The story goes that she found an old copy in a library as she was searching for Black female mothers, role models who were writers. And she took that copy in the 70s to an MLA conference and passed it around that long weekend to all of her female friends. And they then petitioned a body to publish that work to get it back into circulation. So it spent many years where no one read it. It was just dusty in a library, but it is such a beautiful book. It's a woman's story. It's a story about a journey through all kinds of trauma, but coming to herself and understanding her position in the world. And the language and the symbolism and the imagery is just breathtaking. Every time I read it, I wish I could be Zora.
Yes. Yes. So I agree on everything that you just said. I was reminded of her book, of Alice Walker's book, In Search of Our Mother's Gardens. And I know she has an entire chapter devoted to Zora Neale Hurston and has a great reverence and homage for her. And she talks about finding her grave and getting the marker and all of those wonderful things. And yes, the book is so transforming. I remember the first time I read it, and I'm overdue for a reread because it resonates each time. And I'm confident that it's because as I grow older and mature, that there's a different connection to the book or something that I'm supposed to learn. But I love, the main character is really a modern day woman. Because she holds herself accountable for her development. She does it unapologetically. She then moves, and for those who haven't read it, I hope it's a small number because it is such a engrossing and really delicious read. And I was always struck about how she was not confined to traditions. And there's of course some abusive relationships in there, and she makes decisions to move on or to hold her ground. It just resonates on so many different levels. So that is an absolute amazing choice. Amazing choice.
I think you're completely right that when we read it at different points in our lives, there's still something there for us.
Yes.
And that's what defines true art, in my opinion. If at no matter what point you revisit it, there's still something new, something fresh, something wonderful that resonates with you. That's a really good book.
It is. It really, really is. That's a good choice. We'll have to figure out something to do with that campus wide.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to do that. Before we wrap up, and thank you for sharing that. That's a great book. But share with our viewers, those prospective students who may be interested, or even some current students, about getting involved and declaring this as a possible minor.
I am the major touch point right now. I'm in Fine Arts 316. So I welcome any visits and any discussion for clarification anyone wants to have. As I said earlier, this is the first semester. We have done the introduction course. So we really do need to build the interest level. I'll tell you that right now in that class, I have a young woman who has male friends who she talked to about the class, and they were so interested in the things that we're talking about. They have started attending the class. They're not enrolled in it, but they're attending, and we're having wonderful, wonderful conversations about life experiences and how these issues are playing out in our lives today. So I would love for students to come by, send me emails. We'll have more advertising and more recruiting out as we get down that road a little bit more.
Okay, very good. And is the information up on our ASU website? And I know our producer will do some lower thirds with additional information.
It should be.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you so much. I enjoyed chatting with you today and learning more about this, what I know will be an amazing program. Please know that you're welcome to come back anytime to give us some updates. And I look forward to partnering in a couple projects as we move forward with this.
Wonderful. That sounds great. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Same here. Viewers, thank you so much for joining me for this edition of Realizing Potential. Continue to be safe, and I look forward to seeing you next time.